Now, is it hard to get a job in UK at the moment, specifically in healthcare? Now, those who know, I'm a physiotherapist. Now, my name is Farouk Bello. I work in the NHS at the moment. And I graduated in 2020 out of university as an international student. And then I got a tier 2 work visa, which is also known as the health and care visa in the UK at the moment. So I've been working here for well over approaching 2 years now. The process itself is one which a lot of people will say it's a very hard process in terms of visas, sponsorships, getting a job, interviews. There are a lot of steps for both international applicants as well as local applicants as well. Now, the idea from going from not having an NHS job to having an NHS job is one that can be difficult. In this video, I'm going to explain, why is it hard? Is it even hard? And some of the overall steps in the process of getting a job in the United Kingdom if you're coming from far away, you're coming from Nigeria, India, wherever in the world, Ghana, you are international students graduating, this year and trying to get a job. Just get a nice little summary of all the steps and explaining what makes it hard, if it's even hard at all. Okay, let's begin this video. The process itself is very complex, there's no doubt, because there are multiple steps. Now, the first element of even trying to get a job in the United Kingdom in healthcare is knowing who you want to work for, private or NHS. Now, NHS is the largest employer of individuals, and they're one of the people who sponsor the most visas, to be honest. And if I'm being honest, there are thousands of NHS jobs available at the moment at any given time around the whole country. So most individuals will go through this NHS route to start off with. Either you're coming locally or not. You don't have to go through the NHS route. It's just what a lot of people will end up doing, primarily because of it's a bit easier than the private route. Now, the private route is there if you want to go through that route, and there are very valid private hospitals, private clinics that will, take you on. But for international, that's a lot easier for local students than international students. Internationals, you need to start looking at those sponsorship lists. And the grand majority of NHS trusts do sponsor your visas. Some more than others. Some are more competent with the process, while some are less competent because they're not doing it very often. And that will be a huge factor that plays a role. For example, if a company or a hospital or trust is very familiar with the process, once you ask them, or you are successful through that job, and you ask them, can I get a certificate of sponsorship? They can provide it to you within weeks, 2 weeks. I've heard a case recently within a week of getting the job, they were provided with a sponsorship visa, and the rest was left to them to make that application. I waited months before I got mine, and it's multiple factors. It was COVID, high demand on HR staff. I've covered this in a separate video, but it varies. Now, that's just one element of the whole process. Again, this is what makes it hard, particularly, is because there are multiple steps, and at each step, there are points of failure. When I say points of failure, is places where something will either delay your whole process or just make it nearly impossible to progress. Let's start with the beginning aspect of, you found the sponsorship list, you've seen the hospitals that sponsor your visa, that's absolutely fine. Now, the interview. You've applied for a job and you've met all the requirements. You feel as though you've met the requirements. You send the application, you get the job, interview. That's the first step you need to overcome. If you're very good at interviews, you may find no issues with this. I'll be honest, I like interviews. I don't mind interviews, to be honest, because I do like talking, as you can probably see. But there are other elements that I might find difficult. Not everyone is, talkative or wants to be able to express themselves in interviews. So some people find this the hardest part, especially sometimes local students. This may be the only part that they find as a barrier. Once you get through the interview, as a local student, you can probably start within a month. You pick your start date, and that's how you go from there. And it's a fairly straightforward process, if I'm being honest. But for an international student, that's just one step in the whole process, and which adds to complexity, because now you need to know, will they sponsor your visa? Even if they do sponsor, they don't always do. And I keep telling people this. They will say, yes, we sponsor, brilliant. Now you need to wait for them to provide you with a sponsorship letter after you've sorted out all the documents on your side, so you don't waste time with that cost. Check out my cost video, which I've done, which is how long it normally takes if you're interested in that. After that, once they provide you with that letter, the next steps is providing the application. Now, again, this part can get really complex depending on a variety of factors. Do you have a family you want to bring across into the country? You have to consider that. I will be trying to do a video of that later on to see if I can explain that whole family side of it if you bring your family across. Obviously, I didn't do that, so I'm not... I don't have fresh information, but I will try and look into it. But that's one thing you have to consider. Wife coming across with you, a wife trying to come across down already here. Do you have kids? Are you the only person applying for this visa process? Does your job even meet the salary requirements? Are you even on the list of health and care visa, or are you on the regular tier 2 workers route? There are differences. Health and care is a separate subsection which has its own little perks. The tier 2 has its own, but it doesn't have as much of the smaller perks of no fees and X, Y, and Z, no health surcharge as the other. So that's another thing you need to consider. Is your job occupational shortage list only? That also plays a role. So again, there's a lot of research that has to be done on the individual's part in the whole visa process at multiple steps. Once you then figure out all of this and you sort out your paperwork, do you need to prove your English? So if I don't need to prove my English because I was already studying an English degree in UK. So it doesn't make sense for me to then need to prove an English again. But if you're coming from abroad, are you writing IELTS, Pearson's, or are you converting your degree and saying that the English level is proficient enough? That's another consideration you will have to go through as well. As you can see what makes it slightly complex, but the information is all out there. You just have to read through it and watch videos like these to try and make it a little bit make more sense and ask questions. Now, I try and answer as many questions as I can. I don't want people not able to answer all because I do have work as outside this as well. But it's asking questions to different individuals. Something I was considering doing is making a small group. If you're interested in that, let me know, of individuals who will just ask similar questions so we don't have to always repeat the same questions at some points. But there are many processes involved. Now, that's one step away as well. When you sort out all that, you gather all of your document, your finances, you have to consider your financial situation. Do you have any money in your account? There are multiple steps, as you can see, that make it complex, but the information is out there again. Once you figure out all that and you send off your application, the next part again is more patient because you have to wait for a decision. Now, hopefully you hear the good news and it's yes, you are successful. Then you have to consider how you are going to come down to UK and relocation. Relocation is a whole different beast in itself of relocating yourself. I relocated from Midlands, so I was already in UK, from UK to UK, from a location from London to somewhere else. But if you're coming from abroad, you're going to have to consider a lot more factors into this, as well as it's going to cost quite a bit. Let me know again for something like this if you want me to cover relocation and stuff like this, just a few things you want to consider as well. But the overarching thing is that it's a very complex process. But I will tell you this, that realistically in UK in 2022, whatever year it is, the demand for healthcare workers is always going to be there. I'll be honest, it's because as much as I am international and I have my bias, there's an aging population, one. There's always shortages. There are always people retiring. There are people who relocate. So there's always going to be a need. It's the reality of the situation. In a perfect world, there would be no vacancies available because that would theoretically mean that the NHS was working at optimal levels and there were no shortages anywhere, which we know is not a realistic thing that is happening at the moment. It's not the reality now. This is utopia, theoretical situation I'm talking about. But so the demand is there. You have to just be willing to move to a different part of, move to Wales, move out. You don't always have to be in London. There are different areas as well. And people who tend to struggle and look for sometimes, or they say they can't find if they're already here, is how far out are you looking for, or which one of these processes are you getting delayed? Is it the interviews that you're struggling with? Then you can get help for that. Is it the visa side, which you can also get help via lawyers? Check out my video talking about lawyers and whether you should use them and the pros and cons of that. But there will be multiple factors that play a role in this whole process. But again, this video is just to give you a nice overarching image. And again, back to the original question, is it hard to get a health and care visa? Is it hard to get a work visa? Or is it hard to get a job in the UK? The answer is, unfortunately, yes, it is. It's not one that is, you fill out one form, bang, or once you get the job, that's the end of it. For international students, healthcare jobs will be complex. For a local student, though, it will not be as complex as, it's more straightforward, if I'm being honest. Some people may disagree and say, oh, it's still as hard. No, it's not. But, that's your opinion. This is my opinion to say it is harder for internationals, regardless, getting the job, because your employer takes that into consideration as well. Because unfortunately, we cost a bit more, but we are definitely worth it, because I do think that the international workforce plays a significant role as to keeping the NHS on its feet and still working, and keeping the entire UK healthcare system working, because internationals are always going to be needed. International applicants, immigrants, it's just the way the world works. And don't let the news discourage you thinking that, they're not receptive. They are now making more favorable rules, because when you realize the reality of the situation in the coronavirus and what that has entailed, it's making a clear need of healthcare workers to serve the population. But hopefully this was slightly helpful. It's not a very scripted video in terms of exactly specifics of X, Y, and Z. It's more just to give you an overarching idea as to what to expect if you're looking for a job in the UK and you're trying to come from abroad, or you're just trying to get a job. There are complexities, but the earlier you start, the more time you give yourself, the better it always is. Hopefully that video was helpful. This video was helpful and you got some content. If you have any specific questions or videos you want me to try and cover, pop them in the comment section and I will try and get to those videos as well in the comments, or send, my socials is Rooks Health at Instagram, Twitter, and Farouk Bello on LinkedIn. I do tend to answer a bit more on LinkedIn and Twitter. I do try Instagram as well, but it is what it is. Take care of yourselves now, all right? Have a lovely day and see you in the next video.